Hello and welcome to the Ramon Foster Show, a special 4-shot episode of the Ramon Foster Show. Mon, how about you? How many shots on this Monday?
I just had one big cup of coffee, man. That's all it took for me, man. But clearly, I'm not DK, so 4 shots it is for you, sir.
Well, it depends on the process here. You know, you've talked about needing to or wanting to stay up at certain situations whenever you were playing. I had to stay up and write lots and lots and lots of words about Patriots 17, Steelers 14, and it never feels like it's enough because there are so many topics to cover.
It is, man, and especially yesterday. I'll be honest with you. What I thought would have been I knew it would be challenging because it's New England. They always are. But you couldn't have made me believe yesterday would go the way it did, though. Not even a little bit.
Now, and the part that I'm going to be honest with you here, we're going to be covering a lot of ground here on this show as it relates to reaction to these things, including in the second episode, which I think the second segment, I should say, I think everyone's really going to enjoy. But the reaction of the fan base tends to be who to blame. And it's a singular point where it's just, okay, who is the one person that we're blaming here? Mon, how many you played in a lot of wins, you played in a lot of losses. How many of the losses were the fault of a single individual?
Not a lot.
I would imagine it's a pretty low number.
It's pretty low, man. You can't pinpoint it because you can always say, well, if you didn't do this, then that wouldn't have happened. If he wouldn't have done this, then that wouldn't have happened. So it's a team loss. And I know that's cliche as heck when you mention that type of stuff, but it is, and that's what yesterday was too, in every single phase. Literally, special teams, offense, and defense. It was every single phase.
It's here. Cam Sutton drops an interception. Gunnar Olszewski drops a punt.
Yep.
I mean, you could do this all day.
Offense dropped a bunch of balls.
I mean, and then you look at the reaction that comes in. I wrote about Mitch Trubisky. I feel like the quarterback thing is an issue here. And the reaction was, you're blaming Trubisky. What about this guy? What about this? What about Matt Canada? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that's not what I chose to write about this thing over here. It's not blaming anybody, you know? It's 53 guys, you know? That was a team loss. It really was. Where was the pass rush?
There was none of it. We spoke about that. I mean, I'm sure we'll get to my grading system here in a little while.
That is the second segment. It's going to be awesome.
Stay for that one. But it's true. It was a multitude of a lot of things, man, when it came down to that loss, man. One being at home, but it was just stagnant. And I even think it was stagnant on both sides, man. Like offensively, couldn't get anything going. Again, we spoke about, of course, DK, the idea that the run game has to get started. Guys got to find holes. The offensive line need to move bodies. And guess what? We had a little bit of the offensive line moving bodies, but the vision as far as getting downhill, getting yards wasn't there. The overthrows, the underthrows, the rolling out of the pocket wasn't there. The lack of receiver routes down the field, the lack of receiver involvement was an issue. But defensively, run stopping wasn't there again. Getting off the field in situational football wasn't there. Now, again, it wasn't however many yards it was the first weekend, but it wasn't good in situational ball. And, of course, the special team side of things, DK, against that team up north. I almost sound like it's Michigan and Ohio State here. You can't do certain things against them. And muffing the punt, having a bad punt or two in those games, that's what they capitalize on. They always have with New England.
No, they're ravenous beasts and always have been in that regard. If the chances of you making a mistake of that scope against New England and getting to survive it the way you did, for example, in the opener against Cincinnati, where there were a bunch of mistakes, but the Bengals would be booting it off the upright or missing the PAT or whatever it was, or Minka's blocking it. No. New England just says, oh, thanks. Dink, 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 score.
Yeah.
And that's how that goes, because that's what Mike Tomlin referred to the Patriots, this was earlier in the week, as having a high floor. Yeah. And that's exactly what that is, meaning they're not going to do stupid things with the normal situations.
No. And one of those things, man, is we spoke about the shell of what this defense was last week and how guys had to, fulfill roles with Alex Highsmith and Malik Reed and how Cam got to do his thing and Larry Ogunjobi. Like, we didn't see anybody else fill those roles this past weekend defensively. And that's the part I think that stunk the most for almost everybody involved. Like, we knew it was evident that TJ wasn't in. We knew that, look, somebody had to make a play. We got none of that, DK. And then on the back end, you got the usual suspect and Minka making a big time play as far as the interception goes, but then it was nothing from that. And then you're like, well, what are we as a team then? Like, what is the identity? How do we operate? In what fashion will we churn out ugly wins? It shouldn't be a good loss. Oh man, they capitalized. Like, we can't have that. Right now, I don't know how often we can churn out ugly wins if all hands aren't on deck, meaning TJ, Cam, Minka, Deontay is in that conversation right now.
He is.
Like, if we don't have TJ with the other group, then what are we? I know TJ's a bad man, but we can't put that off on him, And it's 1 week, I get it, but daggone it, this is where we got to correct it and find out who's next, And I'm not even really overly mad at the defense. I'm not. I'm more pissed off that the offense hadn't found a way to churn it out. Like, you don't stick to the run game. You try to pass, and it's most times a scramble situation. Decision making has been lacking, and just the idea that, well, are you just going? Is Najee a number one wide receiver? Like, those are the questions we're all asking right now. How do we get to this point?
Wait, you're asking about Najee as number one running back?
No, I'm asking as the wide receiver because the way he gets the ball thrown to him consistently.
I thought that's what you might have meant.
No, yes. I'm being very condescending in my tone and how I say it.
Okay, because you played with Le'Veon Bell, who once asked to be paid like a wide receiver. That's why I'm asking.
Grades are next, DK.
You know who I think the identity of this football team is? I think they were both standing on the sideline in this game. I don't care who I tick off by saying this. One of them is TJ Watt, and the other one's Kenny Pickett.
You got me there.
When we come back, as promised, the Ramon's report card review, which really should become a Monday staple. Welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show, starring Professor Foster, who is doing, for anybody who doesn't know this, a written report card for DK Pittsburgh Sports after each game. And the only thing better than the tyrannical grades that Mon is giving out are the reactions to them among our commenters, our subscribers on the site. And I'm going to read you a couple of these here, Mon, even though I know you've gone through them because I know you do that. B. Mango says, special teams F, myopic view in my opinion. I just love that he used myopic. Myopic view in my opinion, if that grade is based entirely off of the number 89 fumble. Number 89 being Gunnar Olszewski. If it's not, I offer Harvin 4 punts along of 69. You can't give the whole special teams an F. Lupe Sanchez says, not that I disagree with one thing you wrote, but man, I wouldn't want you as a teacher. And then Steeler Girl responds with, you would want him as a teammate for sure. These go up and down here.
They do.
Mon, take me through your thought process when you're watching this. Are you thinking about, or do you wait until afterward to say, okay, I've got the whole picture in my head here?
I'm writing throughout just because it's fresh on my mind. I see it. My reaction is as pure as it get when it come down to me putting it down. And it keeps me more in tune to it, to where these days you watch football games and you start to text and you go on social media and keep me engaged in this. One thing, and you warned me about this too a little bit, no matter what grade you give, it's never the grade that most everybody want either, okay? No. Last week I was too light, okay? This week I'm too harsh. And I'm just like, all right, take it as it comes to you. But I said this also. I preface this by saying this. I preface my write-up by saying this. In a loss, everything is highlighted even more. We can put frosting on a bad cake, okay? And it'd be okay because we finished it. But if you ruin the cake, guess what? We can't do anything with it. And that's what happened yesterday, man. Overall team, I gave it a D. I mean, just in general, if I'd have given it a C, I would have thought that was just way too easy. And that's way too, I ain't gonna say too favorable. But if you look at the way it was, like the absence of TJ was way more highlighted than we actually thought. Offensively, the dump-offs to Najee, I'm with him. I love the guy. All the touches that he's getting is freaking phenomenal. But even then, I don't know if it's even used properly. Like, it's not even screens that are set up. It's just dump-offs and letting him get tattooed while not having offensive linemen in front of him so that he can go create downfield. The runs. This team is a whole lot better offensively with tight inside zone runs. They have a very athletic line. They're able to get in front of people, move them, and let Najee do what he does best, and that's run and cut back and get those yards after the fact, man. Quarterbacking, F. I think it's self-explanatory in a sense. If you watch the way I watch, I thought some of his balls had too much air, not enough air. I thought the level of scrambling, which I was all in on this guy being a mobile-like quarterback in this Matt Canada type of offense. What did they say? Oh, we can't do it because Ben's here. Oh, Ben's not mobile. Ben's not this. Yeah, and now I'm looking at it like the sucker face on your face right now is like big dopey. Maybe it's just not in him to call it. Maybe it's not in Mitch to actually execute those plays. But either way, going down the field, just not there. Like being able to create and you're running around. Let me cut myself off right here, too. If I see him run out of bounds one more time with that ball in his hand for a sack, I'm going to lose my mind. Awareness is zero on Madden right now, okay?
I hear you. The one that I have to call attention to, as always, with an 11-year NFL offensive lineman is the C- that you gave to the O-line. That's obviously been a real focal point of ours on this show for months now. I'm going to read everyone your entry here. You say, got to get their assignments down. Too much leakage on run plays too often. With that being said, zone running seems to be the style of play that'll work best for this group. Getting first downs on third and short is always welcome. As a whole, not enough control on the game. Only one sack actually given to that group. The other two go to Mitch. Mon, I don't even, with all due respect, the one sack that you're given to the group and the other two to Mitch, I'm actually going to respectfully disagree. Even the one, because that was Najee.
Well, there we go.
Okay. Najee got blown up. Yeah, that was his guy. I know which one you're talking about here, and I've watched the game again since the second time on film, but that was 22 getting bowled over there. So I don't think they gave up any.
Well, it's hard to operate, though, when you have indecisiveness. It's hard to operate when you get no rhythm of what you're going to run. Are we student body right and left, or are we tight inside zone? And I know it's good to do both, but when you're back and forth from one to the other, like where's the succession of running the same play 2 times in a row? If I get 3, well, let me get another 3, maybe 4 this time around. We don't get that. And then I hate to even go at him because I know he's everybody's favorite, but the vision somewhat. It's just Najee bouncing it on the outside when there was a huge gap up the middle in that.
Everyone has done a freeze frame on that one. Mon, they had the guys. You saw Trey Essex's freeze frame on Twitter.
We talked about this before he even said it, right?
Well, that was what I said to Trey. I went to him on Twitter and I go, Trey, me and Mon have been talking about this for months. Every single X had an O. There was hat on hat. The blockers executed a lane perfectly. And Najee looks at it and goes, I'm going to bounce outside. Do you I hope you can relay to people how frustrating that is as an offensive lineman when you do your job and the running back doesn't correspond.
What happens is it causes a little bit of division. And I hope one of those guys in that room, and it seemed like Mason Cole is the guy that speaks up, go to the OL coach and say, hey, coach, you got to talk to the running back coach or talk to the running backs and tell them where they need to hit the gap. Like,
Bring them in the room.
And that's all I was going to say.
Have you had that happen?
We did this every Thursday. They used to come into the offensive line room and watch us block and practice and say, hey, this is where we want you. But it's also putting pride to a side. It's a bunch of young guys that's got to figure this out. Look, if we're going to be good, I have to be able to say, hey, you sucked on this play and still be cool with you. And that's the portion of it we used to meet with the running backs as far as protections and as far as runs and say, hey, watch us block this, you guys hit right here. We're not telling you how to do your job, but if you want us to do our job and understand you, then you got to come in here with us and be selfless and put that pride to a side as far as us getting this going, because right now, the entire 60,000+ people are saying you guys suck. Not just us.
That's the part that isn't fair. Yeah, that's the part that's not fair is I still get stuff about the O-line. The O-line was supposed to be the undoing of the franchise, okay?
Feel me?
And all they've done through a couple of games here is rise up within a reasonable context here. I'm not saying they're the best or that they're perfect or whatever, but when you look at the way they handled New England yesterday, I thought they did fine. I don't want to put a stronger adjective on it, but I'm going to have their back as long as they're performing. I'm going to rip them when they're not.
And this ain't all on them. C- is simply because the results just didn't allow me to be any better than that. And again, their performance didn't allow them to do any better than that. If we're blocking and you run into darkness on anybody behind you, or if you're protecting the quarterback and he's dropping back and getting gunshot in the pocket, and now there's pressure on you because we created this shell around you that you should be perfect in, and then a guy is running you down and you flip the ball in the air. I'm like, I don't even on that quick play action play where he just dropped back, turned around and threw it into the linebacker, I think tipped it and it was an interception. I'm thinking to myself, like, you had more time. And if that was your first read and only read, then I got to talk about the coordinator and what we're installing. It's way too many playmakers on that side of the ball. Look at the guys' faces, though. They'll tell you how frustrated they are as far as the receivers go. If you want to know how you create divas, this is how. Because now I'm frustrated just as they are.
Yeah, this is it. When for anybody who hasn't seen Ramon's report card, it's available on DKPittsburghSports.com. I'm going to leave, if you're watching this on YouTube, we're going to leave a link up there how to find today's edition of the report card and how you can subscribe to our site, support our small but growing business.
Hey, now.
You like that, Ramon? You see
I like that.
You see it? When we come back, quite literally the only segment that matters.
Hey, Mon.
Welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show. This segment, the only segment that matters, is brought to you by the Get Go Cafe and Market, where it's all about quality. 3 expert chefs fine-tune every detail so that every sub, burger, salad, wrap, drink, appetizer gets made with fresh ingredients and always tastes amazing. Order your favorites at the Get Go Cafe and Market today. Better believe it. It is time, Mon. Enough stalling. Enough distractions.
Yeah, here we go.
It is time for the Hey Mon segment, and today's entry comes from Michael May, who says, "Hey Mon, I was at the game. There were receivers open downfield. Mitch has tunnel vision, and he gives up on his reads too early. It's frustrating debating with the Fire Matt Canada crowd who weren't at the game and can't see what's going on downfield. And disclaimer, I'm not defending Matt Canada. I'm not thrilled with his play calling. I just don't think he's the biggest issue. What about you?"
Matt Canada being the biggest issue? Well, if those are the reads that he chooses to go with in games, then is he being challenged enough when it comes down to practices? If
what do you mean by
aren't
that?
As far as Canada, you're saying, it's probably not Matt Canada, it's Mitch Trubisky. Well, what's happening in practice as far as these reads go? Because on that long third down, I'm thinking to myself, was Najee actually the first go-to on that one? Okay. And also a coach's job is to prepare a guy. Like on the Deontay interception, I'm thinking to myself, well, was that the only read on that? Because it seemed like Mitch was very much in tune to only going to him on that play without actually setting up and reading the defense. If that's the case, then that's a lack of preparation from a coordinator / quarterback coach mindset. Like, you got to set these guys up for success sometimes. And it doesn't seem like that's the case. If you're willing to lay your hat on saying, this is my guy, well, if that's your guy, prepare your guy then. Have him ready for Sundays and Thursdays and Monday nights.
I feel like I'm going to swing back to the very beginning of this episode, and I'm going to underline this and boldface it, italicize it, and apply neon lights and everything else. It's never about one individual. No. It's never, this is on Matt Canada, or this is on Mitch Trubisky, or this is on Gunnar Olszewski, or whatever it is. Gunnar lost the game, if you want to get real specific here, okay? And Gunnar doesn't get to drop his punt if right before it, if Cam Sutton makes what should have been a routine pick. But when you get to the offense, ultimately, things do work up the food chain here. So it's not like Matt Canada is absolved of anything, to say the least. Okay, these route trees that now everybody's picking apart or trying to pick apart as much as you can on TV are not ambitious. No. They don't have. I mean, George Pickens was doing this, Moan, like rod hockey. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Like where you can only go in a single lane. This is all he was doing in the game, up and down the right sideline. That's not good enough, is it?
No, it's not, man. If he's been touted as what? One of these young gurus, one of these guys that's supposed to be creative. We're supposed to see a bunch of movement. That to me is Shanahan with the 49ers. This to me is just pitch and throw. Trying to let your playmakers make plays down the field against other NFL type players. Like, that's not creativity. That's not scheming guys up. I hate to go this hard on the guy because there's so much season left. But if something doesn't change, he doesn't open up that playbook a little bit more, scheme it, find ways to game plan a little bit better, get better third down calls, and being more creative with your running back and not only going to your running back in the passing game. I'm like, how is everybody covered up? Like, these guys can actually catch the ball. We've seen them. I actually think
get open. They can get open.
And if he's not,
go ahead.
And I was gonna say, if he's not throwing the NFL open wide receivers, then that's another issue. Then
that's why I'm saying it's never all that cut and dried. And I'm blaming this guy or I'm blaming that guy, because there also were situations where these receivers were open. Both things can be true. I saw patterns that Pat Freiermuth in particular was running right out over the middle, but the quarterback, Mitch Trubisky wouldn't even look, didn't even see him, didn't even attempt to lay eyes on him. He went, where's my check down? Boom. Okay, I'm off the hook. Hey, everybody see that? I'm off the hook. I hit the check down guy. That's on the quarterback.
And not to revisit history or use this guy, and I'm going to try to minimize this as much as I possibly can. But that's what you loved about Ben. At the end of the day, you knew he was going to stand 10 toes down in that pocket and fight like a warrior and have to be dragged off that field when it came to making those plays. Your job sometimes as a quarterback is you got to take it on the chin when somebody's up the middle of the gap to deliver that to Pat Freiermuth down the middle when he needs 1/2 of a second longer to get open, instead of dumping it off with a whole bunch of air along the sideline to a running back, which they will have enough time to close on him.
So bad. I know exactly the pass on the right side. It was, and I described it in the moment as being an excessively ambitious play call by Matt Canada. But it was both. It was a lousy call and it was a lousy execution. This is why I say I really don't think the Steelers' problems on offense are just, hey, let's look at that guy.
Let's see, man. We got a quick turnaround.
Yeah, I hear you. Anyway, let's do another one of these tomorrow, Moan.
Absolutely, DK.